What's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video, another quick take. I got my main man, my partner, my homeboy.
I got 99 problems with talking A1. Thank you for having me again, bro.
Yes, sir. So we've got a situation here. So we've got an article courtesy of Variety.com which says Dave Chappelle calls out Katt Williams for dissing other black comedians. So Chappelle spoke out about Williams on stage at MonDerays at the Hollywood Improv on Friday, an event hosted by comedian D. Ray Davis. Although Chappelle's sets are known for their strict no phone policy, segments of his set where the comedian criticizes Williams have circulated on social media. Chappelle says, "What part of the game is this? He only ethered. He didn't say anything about any of these white boys. None of these white boys function like that," Chappelle said of Williams during his set. "Katt is one of the best painters in the game. So why are you drawing ugly pictures of us? Stop." On Shannon Sharpe's Club Shay Shay podcast, Williams made comments about Ice Cube, Kevin Hart, Cedric The Entertainer, Tiffany Haddish, and Steve Harvey, among others. The interview went viral and was even included in a recent Saturday Night Live skit. Chappelle continued, hurt people, but I am a hurt person that never hurt people. And he does it all the time. Fuck this one, that one, and fuck this one, Chappelle said, impersonating Williams. But nigga, I didn't hear anything you did wrong. He didn't do nothing wrong. Katt didn't do nothing wrong. Katt was talking about that niggas did to other, but not about anything that niggas did to him. Chappelle then went on to say, if he told his story, it would break your heart, and that he lost everything and never ever told on anybody. He went on to say that he does Katt hard, but questioned why Williams would call out his peers when all of us are trying to be in a better position. So basically, we heard about, the Katt Williams interview he did with Shannon Sharpe. And I'm being honest with you, that interview was so long that I only really watched about 10 or 20 minutes or so. And then I've only really seen clips on TikTok and social media, stuff like that, about, him talking about certain people and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on what Chappelle said? And also give your thoughts on the Katt Williams interview and what stood out most about it.
Ooh, I actually, it's funny because I watched three clips and then I watched the whole thing the other night. I actually took the chance to watch all of it. And, shout out to Katt Williams. I know a lot of people, it might rub him wrong. It might rub certain people in higher places the wrong way. But, I'm glad he spoke his truth. And it's something that we don't often hear from successful black entertainers or just celebrities in general. You rarely ever hear of a celebrity or someone in Hollywood calling out the, if you will, the Illuminati and all that stuff. Um, I think what Katt did, shout out to him. I think he did it with respect. He didn't go on there and poke fun. He didn't make any racist jokes, anything. He just spoke his truth. He clarified a couple things, but he spoke from his heart. And I see that Dave Chappelle, which I always agree with Dave Chappelle. I may not understand why he's not upset with Katt Williams. I think he just didn't understand why he attacked black comedians. But I understand why Katt Williams did it. As black people, we expect certain things from other people. And I'm not saying we shouldn't call it out. But there's a difference when you're around your black friends and when you're around white people. And in this type of space, because me and you were both in the entertainment industry, we kind of know, shout out to we just did a quick take on Taraji P. Henson. We know that we're going to get treated by other people differently, but when it comes to our own, when it comes to people we're working with, the people we share the state, well, in his world, share the stage with, you expect a certain level of professionalism and respect. And I think for him, I think he's calling it out that because it's something that you really need to talk about. I think we often always hear black people talking about the white man, but we don't talk about the fact that we screw each other over all the time. And I've been critical of this very thing outside of Hollywood, but I think Katt Williams is shedding light on something that rarely ever told. And I know Dave Chappelle, courtesy of the Rude, he was on a podcast talking about the whole Dave Chappelle thing, Katt Williams thing. And he was saying that, there's certain things he understands. The Illuminati, he understands that, he's been through some stuff that he hasn't ever shared with anybody. And he knows that if he ever shared his story, it make people, cry and put people in pain. But he just didn't understand why he called out black actors and celebrities in the space. And truth be told, I don't blame Cat, because he
Mhm.
has been blackballed. He has been treated unfairly. I still remember the headlines like it was yesterday. He has been treated poorly. And to see him stand up for himself, hey man, sometimes when you gotta stand up for yourself, you gotta stand up against everybody, not just one person. You gotta stand up to everybody. So um before we get into it, well, how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I feel like I understand where Dave Chappelle was coming from a lot more than Katt Williams. And it's a double-edged sword when it comes to Dave Chappelle. On one end, I understand what he means when he's like, all right, like basically you had this whole viral interview and all you did was talk shit about other black comedians. And he's pointing out the fact that we rarely ever stand on one united front and defend ourselves against other races of people that are constantly attacking us. So I understand where he's coming from as far as that's concerned. At the same time, though, are we really a united front? Because if that was the case, then Katt Williams would have had no ammunition as it relates to other comedians, that may have done him wrong or done him dirty in the past. Again, I didn't watch, the interview enough to really know the backstory between why he called out Steve Harvey, why he called out Kevin Hart. I think he
Oh,
said
you want me
that's
to tell you?
well, hold on, let me finish. But
Okay.
or why, I know he said that Cedric the Entertainer stole one of his jokes or some shit like that. But basically, I don't know the backstory. So maybe these other comedians did him dirty, or he feels, slighted or disgruntled by them, in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. At the same time, my criticism of Katt Williams is that you say all of that to say what? What is the ultimate takeaway from that whole Club Shay Shay podcast that he did? I don't know. So it's like you're divulging all of this information, but what is the general public supposed to do with all of that and really take away from all of that other than basically Katt Williams stands on one side of the comedy spectrum and then all these other, comedians stand on the other side. So basically it's all of them versus Katt Williams. Because that's why I didn't want to sit and watch 3 hours of something for me to not really know what I was supposed to, take away from all of that. So that's
Right.
why I feel like I understand what Dave Chappelle said because there's a takeaway from all of that, which is all right, that same energy you could be using or that you are using to attack other black comedians, you should be using that, to attack, what I'm saying, other types of people and shit like that that are attacking you. That's
Right.
how I feel about that because you know, what was it that he said? He said Katt was talking shit. He was talking about that shit that niggas did to other niggas, but not about anything that niggas did to him. So he's saying he's like, yo, like, what's his real problem with anybody? Just I guess him being on the other side of the spectrum.
You know, this is if I urge anybody who hasn't had the chance. I know it's long. I would say probably skip until hour end because I think that's when the juicy stuff starts. Or 45 minutes to hour end. I think the biggest takeaway for me, I learned for him, he was he was calling out people because there's been a lot of false information. And part of the reason why he called out not Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, actually Steve Harvey as well. And there was another person in that list. So this is a
Tiffany
little bit
Haddish,
before
Kevin Hart.
yeah, I'm gonna get to those in a second.
Mm.
Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart is separate. But the Kings of Comedy, original Kings of Comedy, Steve Harvey and all of them. The reason why he was calling them out was Bernie Mac, who rest in peace to him, who was before our time. He was what people considered the Michael Jackson of comedy. He was the first to make comedy what it was and also transcend to movies and all that stuff. And he felt like when Bernie was alive, people made fun of him because of his skin colors. Because we all know Bernie Mac was, darker than, our phone screen. All jokes aside, I was just joking. But they made fun of him because of his complexion. He wasn't accepted by many people because of his complexion. Um, and the fact that he was a comedian turned, actor, a lot of people looked down on him. And one of the things he said was, a lot of these people, Cedric, Steve Harvey, that group of people, they hated Bernie because he wanted transition to comedy. But then when you look at what they did the exact same thing, and he felt like they made it seem like he was a sellout, but they was looking for the same thing too. They wanted to cross over and be a movie stars as well. And then on top of that, he felt like when Bernie Mac died, they tried to, they tried to play him. Like they talked down on his legacy. They made it seem like he never existed, that he wasn't supposed to be a part of the original Kings of Comedy group. And he was talking about how like Bernie was the headliner of the show. He was the guy that Bernie didn't go on first. He didn't go on second. He was the last act. And Bernie was doing this even when he wasn't the headlining act of one of the original Kings of Comedy, shows. He was still in the show because he got so big and became so funny and successful that even if it wasn't his show, he was able to go on there and do whatever he had to do. And then on top of in terms of Kevin Hart and Tiffany Haddish, his problem with Kevin Hart was, and it does make sense. When have you ever heard of someone, who moves, who's a no name? Let's say me, for example, right? Let's say I had the podcast or nothing. Would it be crazy that if I move to LA, I'm the first person, no matter the race or whatever, move to LA and in a matter of a year, get his own sitcom special, his own Netflix deal, all of these other big things. Nobody in history has ever been able to achieve that amount of success in that short amount of time. And he said, but Kevin Hart did it. So how did Kevin Hart get those opportunities? And then he said that he was an industry plant. He was given those opportunities. And I mean, some people might disagree, but as we both know in Hollywood, it's not easy, especially as black men, to get a role.
Right.
So to get your own Netflix special after moving to LA, and I've done that, trust me, it's not as easy as people think. And Tiffany Haddish, she was saying that her and this other comedians who aren't funny, Tiffany Haddish isn't funny, but because she's buddies with Kevin Hart, he used his platform and his, right for him, but he used his platform to elevate her. But if it was true comedy, Tiffany Haddish wouldn't be famous. But it's because Kevin Hart uses his wealth and his power to get up there, and that's why she's been able to get some gigs, but she's not that funny. So, and there's more to the story, but those are the
Yeah, I mean, it was like an expose. Honestly, it was just like an expose of other comedians and what they had going on behind the scenes and how it rubs him the wrong way. So again, it wasn't really anything that had to do with him specifically. And I'm not saying that Katt Williams is wrong, because I do think it does take somebody like him to attack the establishment, because I know it is like an exclusive community of gatekeepers and public figures that determine who goes and who comes in and all that other types of stuff. But the other thing I don't like is, how is he going to say, that people were making fun of Bernie Mac for the way that he looked and all of this, but the first thing that he said about Jonathan Majors was that he's ugly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't, I don't know, you just can't pick and choose when to be righteous and when not to be righteous. And my thing is this: if all of that was going on with Bernie Mac back in the day when Katt Williams was at his peak, how come he never said all of this stuff before? Why? Was it because he was in cahoots and he was on the right side, but now, he's in the frozen food section, like I said in the Taraji P. Henson quick take. Now he feels all disgruntled and now he wants to come out and say all of this shit. But when you were going to Illuminati meetings with Ludacris and they were deciding who was going to get paid $20 million checks, but one of y'all had to shave your sideburns and all of that, you wasn't saying nothing then, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's just like, yo, I don't. So if you're saying all of this, but what are we supposed to do with all that information? Because I don't think that's going to stop what Kevin Hart got going on, what Steve Harvey got going on, what other comedians have going on. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have done the interview, but I'm just questioning his intentions for doing so other than getting back at people that he just feels like they don't embrace him anymore. Because would he be saying the same thing if Kevin Hart gave him, the same kind of platform that Tiffany Haddish did? Would he feel some kind of way if Steve Harvey was rocking with him and bringing him on the Steve Harvey show and interviewing him? You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, and again, that's how it is when you're in the frozen food section. So how, people think that Monique is this crazy, is this angry, black woman because she's been blackballed. And it's the same thing with Katt Williams, except Katt Williams was given a platform, to talk on, Shannon Sharpe's podcast, and then that just did crazy numbers. But where to from here? That's all I'm saying. Like, I agree with what Chappelle is coming from. But for him, in order for him to say that, then I feel like he needs to facilitate that brotherhood and camaraderie amongst black comedians behind the scenes. So if you don't want, if you feel like comedians should be, all cool and all united like white comedians are, then you need to make sure that it's like that on your side. Because Dave Chappelle, to me, he's like the best comedian right now, in my opinion. Like, if there's anybody's stand-up special I would watch, it would be Dave Chappelle.
Right.
And he's highly respected in the, comedian, like comedy community and all of that, especially like black comedy and stuff like that. So if he's saying that, then I think people will get behind him and be more embracing of Katt Williams. But again, it's one of those things where in Hollywood, when you get on the wrong side of certain people, you're on the wrong side. And really kind of no matter what you do, I mean, I could be wrong, but no matter what you do, or until you get back on their good side, you're in the frozen food section, which is where Katt Williams is at. That's why I was surprised Shannon Sharpe even gave him the interview in the first place. But I don't think he probably thought it was going to do, it was going to get that big,
No, I don't think he did either. But you know what? Katt Williams is still a big name. He's still, he may not have the same opportunities like he did, 15 years ago, but I'm sure he still gets I believe he still gets Netflix special deals and all that. But truth be told, I could agree with you, with you on the side that if he wasn't blackballed, would he speak out? But he is, and I think that's the key part. And one of the reasons why I say that is Ari Spears. I love Ari Spears, one of my favorite comedians. And you'll often see him on DJ Vlad talking. He's usually respectful, but he has his moments of, speaking out. And he will openly admit, yeah, I'm blackballed in Hollywood. And I'll tell you why. It's because I refuse to shut my mouth. And I think Katt Williams probably got to the point where he's like, look, I'm blackballed already. I'm not getting back in these good graces. And I think for a lot of people like Shannon Sharpe, people who aren't in the entertainment industry, it sheds a light on something that happens. It's like the same thing with Taraji P. Henson. A lot of people say, you're a millionaire, shut up, why are you complaining? But she shed a light on the fact that you think just because I walk on the red carpets, everybody got the cameras out, and I got on this nice dress that I'm rich. No, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. It just might be a different size paycheck, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck just as much as you. I'm not saying that's her specifically.
Right.
But there's a lot of people in the industry who are like that, who need that next job. They can't be taking 3 years off, because they got mortgages to pay. And I think Katt Williams, the reason why I did so great, I don't think he went on there with the intention, because one thing he said was, a lot of people going to say I'm salty, I'm a hater for doing this. But the truth be told, I only came on here to defend myself, because apparently Shannon Sharpe has another comedian, I think Ricky Smiley something, go on and try to discredit his role in Friday and how he got his big break. And so that's why he got into that segment. But yeah, I think he went into it with respect. And I think he didn't get crazy. He talked loud. He didn't get ghetto. He remained composed. He remained peaceful. And I think it's easier for people to understand what somebody's saying when they're taking your time and you're speaking like this, then yeah, he said this, he said that. So I think because of the way he talked about it and he was respectful, it made people understand where he was coming from. Because I don't know, yeah, Katt Williams. Because I don't know if you realize, but Gary Owens, he actually did a rebuttal, and he said something on to the fact that, yeah, I've been in one of those rooms before, the ones that Katt Williams was talking about, where you're in that room and something is about to happen. And, he felt the energy where that crossword when he's talking about him and Ludacris, he felt like he was in that position where he was probably gonna have to do something that he wasn't really comfortable with, and he openly admitted that on YouTube on his channel. So
Who you
I
said
think,
Gary Owens?
yeah, Gary, the white comedian,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never heard.
yeah, yeah, Gary Owens, he's a white comedian. He mentioned Katt
Oh,
Williams
okay, okay,
mentioned him
okay.
and the thing because he mentioned why Gary Owens, who's a white comedian, why he wasn't able to cross over from comedy to doing big blockbuster movies. And don't get me wrong, Gary Owens have done some stuff, but he's not a Kevin Hart. He's not making a lot of good movies. But he said that he got into one of those rooms before, not too long ago, and he felt the energy. And once he left, he knew that I wasn't going to get those opportunities that I was probably going to get if I would have said yes. So, and he
Yeah.
went,
I mean, but that's why I feel like the Katt Williams interview was necessary, and it's the same thing I said about Cassie. You know, doing the lawsuit against or filing the lawsuit against Diddy for $30 million because I said you're going to need people out there who are willing to attack the system because that's when things change. But if people don't know what's going on behind closed doors, how can things ever change if all of them is still in cahoots or too scared to say anything? So when you have somebody like Katt Williams coming out and saying what he's saying, that's the benefit of it. Even though, again, I didn't really understand the complete takeaway from it, but that's the benefit. So people
yeah,
go into these situations knowing what's in store versus walking into a room, you think everything's going to be regular, and then they're going to, then eventually they're going to tell you, yeah, you got to do this if you want that. You want a $50
right,
million contract, you want to be the next this or that, you got to do something that is seriously going to compromise your morals. And that's ultimately selling your soul. When you do something that is completely against who you are deep down inside and you're compromising that or you're selling that, for some sort of monetary personal gain, whatever that is. So that's why, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Katt Williams and I didn't necessarily understand everything, I definitely understood that enough to say, yeah, cool, shine a light on this because we need more on that. Just like Cassie, she was shining a light on what was going on with Diddy. Same thing what 50 was saying about Diddy. Katt Williams mentioned Diddy, I think. Didn't he mention going to Diddy's
yeah,
parties or something like that? That's what I
hmm
said. So I applaud that type of stuff because at least we know that things will change the more that people come out and talk about these things because I personally don't like the fact that the industry is set up that way that it's like you could be talented and you could have a lot to bring to the table but ultimately that won't matter unless you got to do something gay or something wild in order for you to achieve what you ultimately deserve. That I don't like. That hopefully, will change at some point. The more people who come out. I mean, honestly, Katt Williams looked and sounded like Orlando Brown and Orlando Brown interviews, pretty much.
right.
Not even the fact that what he's saying is outlandish because it's really not. Like, that's very realistic, everything that he said. But it was just the way that he said it and how he was saying it and how, like, I'll kind of say, like, nonchalant about it, you know? It reminded me a lot of him. And the thing is, people say that Orlando Brown was crazy, but a lot of the stuff that Orlando Brown is saying sounds a lot like what Katt Williams is saying. That's why I was shocked that Shannon Sharpe would put his, platform out there for that. Because I was like, well, ain't Shannon Sharpe in cahoots?
No, and that's the crazy
Well,
because
Shannon Sharpe works for ESPN, okay, which is like part of the Big Six. So to say that he's not in cahoots, come on now.
no, what I mean by because they actually joked towards the end. He said, I'm actually surprised you let me go on this tangent and all this stuff. And he said, I'm not in Hollywood. Don't get me wrong. I might be involved in certain aspects, but I'm not in Hollywood. I'm in sports and generally NBA. Sports is not really the same as what we are. Comedy,
Right.
rap. It's not the same atmosphere. You might interchange at some point, but it's not his. Shannon Sharpe is not going to be an effect by what Katt Williams said.
Hmm.
ESPN ain't going to drop him for that.
Good
Now,
point.
if let's say if Shia LaBeouf not a good example, but if Will Smith had a podcast and he was doing this, oh yeah,
It'd be a wrap.
it'd be a rap. Yeah,
It'd be a
it'd
wrap.
be a rap. And I think that's why Shannon Sharpe allowed him to, because he realized this is safe space. There's no going to be repercussions for me. ESPN ain't going to drop me over something that goes on at Hollywood parties. That got nothing to
Right.
do with me. And I
Right.
think, real quick, I think one of the reasons why I said anybody who didn't get a chance to watch it is because at first I was like, damn, almost 3 hours. But then when you actually listen to the whole thing, and that's why I understand what he was saying. Because at first I thought he was just taking shots. That's why I said I didn't 100% agree with Dave. It's because if
Hmm.
you watch the clips, you might not understand the full effect of why he was saying that. But he goes into a lot of the questions that Shannon Sharpe asked him led to him to these responses, and he gave backstories to why he felt that way. So when he's taking shots at Ludacris and Kevin Hart and all these people, it's not because he's doing it in a way where he's salty. And I think that's why he felt like he didn't want to do it. It's because a lot of people want to look at him like, "Oh, you blackball anyway. You washed up, you old, and you salty." But
Hmm.
I think for him, seeing what happened to him and seeing what goes on behind the scenes, it sheds a light on. And I think we might get to the point where we have more Katt Williams come out. Maybe a Cedric the Entertainer at some point, whatever. But we might have more people come out and talk about it because it is something that needs to be talked about. And that's the only thing I said I disagree with Dave is I understand for him as a black comedian, seeing another black comedian he's close with and stuff, talk about fellow black comedians. But again, when we're in the space, you don't expect your brothers to treat you the same way that the white man would. And I'm not trying to make this into a race thing, but we kind of expect to be treated a certain way in those rooms. When a white person's in there, opposed to a black person. Now, again, you could talk about the injustice against the white people, but I think we hold each other to higher, or we should hold each other to higher standards. Because one thing he said was, a white person wouldn't go on, on a platform and talk about other white people. Well, that's because white people typically have a bond that we don't. And I think that's something we need to work on. Because then we
Right.
don't need it. We won't have another Katt Williams on Shannon Sharpe talking about this stuff.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah, I said if you are going to be critical of Katt, then you also have to do the work in bridging the gap between him and these other comedians, essentially. So it can't just be all of y'all and then him on the other side, and then you wonder why he's talking about y'all a certain way. It's because there's a separation there, And again, like I do want to see more interviews and conversations like what Katt had with Shannon Sharpe as it relates to what's really going on behind the scenes in the entertainment industry, because a lot of that dumb shit needs to stop. A lot of
Oh
that
yeah.
shit needs to stop. Whereas like, oh, in order to get ahead, you got to go to Diddy's house and then attend flavor camps, for 2 weeks and stuff. And then like, come on, man, like, you feel what I'm saying? And that's what I said. Remember at the very end, I'm like, we shouldn't be afraid to stand on the right side if it is in fact the right side. You feel what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I should be worried about not getting, certain roles because I criticized this gatekeeper for sexual abuse.
Right. And
So,
I think
because I think in that aspect, again, I think Katt is on the right side. And like Dave Chappelle, I do think it would be nice to see all comedians on one, united front, and to have the bond with each other, like you said, that white comedians and other public figures have, because we don't see them attacking I mean, outside of politics. We don't see white people attacking each other in entertainment the way that we do each other all the time. But if you're gonna again say, well, Katt, why are you drawing ugly pictures of us? Is because the picture is in fact ugly between y'all, and that's to
exactly.
change. So if you're gonna talk about it, if you're gonna be that guy and you're highly respected, then be that guy and bridge the gap. Because I'm pretty sure Dave Chappelle got all of their numbers.
But I don't know if he will, and it's not his job to. But like you said, that's why Katt Williams did what he did because one thing I will just real quick I'll touch on when you said he's not um you know he's not he's not at the height of his career that he once was, and I
No,
think it's hard when you like Taraji. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's still booking work, but she's not at the height of power. The show she was doing, I'm forgetting the name, but she wouldn't be taught having this conversation when she's the leader of that show making that type of money. Why? Because you're
it's
getting
all good.
paid, you're being treated fairly, you're getting paid what you feel like you deserve, but it's until the aftermath. And again, when you have, Katt Williams had what, like 8, 9 children. I mean, they got to eat, and if you start talking that crazy talk, you know, and that's why he mentioned Jonathan Majors, because he went against the white man or white woman, and he should have known better.
Well,
Because
that is true in a sense, but he called him ugly, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, come on, man. Yeah, I think he was like, oh, you can't tell me that that's a good looking guy or some shit like. I'm like, well, bro, he's dating Megan Good, okay? Like, I don't think your opinion about him matters, but it's just like you're taking the time out of your time on that platform to just call a once rising superstar actor ugly. It's like, come on, man. Come on, man.
oh,
You can't say that and then talk about how people were attacking Bernie Mac's looks back in the day.
I definitely get what you're saying, and I think, and maybe he should have done a better job saying, because he followed up saying that, because Shannon called him out, but he was saying that historically, when Hollywood cast, puts a black man at the top, Kevin Hart is a decent looking dude. Denzel, when he was at the prime, his prime, he was a good looking dude. Will Smith, good
Right.
looking guy. These were conventionally good looking dudes that were successful. Jonathan Majors isn't what you will consider a Will Smith in the looks department. And he overstayed. I think he was saying that Jonathan Majors overplayed his hand and he forgot his place in Hollywood. Yeah, you're a successful actor right now, but don't go against the hand that feeds you. Because once you do, they could pull a plug. And I think that's what he was saying now. Jonathan got into his head. He was this next big thing, but he forgot his place. He's a black.
By dating a white woman? Because
Not so much Dana.
because that's the question. So it's like, well, what? I mean, again, like I partially agree, and I don't agree with him dating a white girl, because I don't think that's the safest thing, for certain black men to do, especially in his shoes. When things go wrong, you're done. You're done. Like, literally, it was all she wrote from the very beginning. And you called that. You said in March last year that his career was done, and then fast forward December, January, yeah, almost a year later, yeah, it is done. But what did he really do wrong? Unless maybe, he went to one of those little meetings that Katt Williams was going to back then, and then maybe something went wrong, and then that's what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched it, but he was essentially saying, like, you know, sometimes people forget their place. You're a black man in Hollywood. You're in a minority here. And I think for him, I think that's why he was calling out all of these comedians. It wasn't because he was trying to go against his fellow, black men, but it's more the fact that, we're supposed to be comedians and we're supposed to be occupying a space that is very protected. Not everybody could just walk and be a comedian. And yet, you guys, walk all over other people who aren't in your clique. Because that's what he was referring to. The comedy group, Cedric and all of them, they're like the original clique together. And they didn't want Bernie Mac in there. They didn't want anybody else in there. And they was the gatekeepers, but they didn't want to say they were gatekeepers to other black comedians because they held the key for them to whether they was going to get on TV or not. And I think that's why he was saying that. He was calling them out because I agree. I think Steve Harvey lost it. I think Steve Harvey, I love Steve Harvey, but I think even him, I watch him, and he definitely seems like a guy that I, I don't know how to describe it, but I don't think he's going to be giving the next black man the opportunity. And I say that with all due respect, but there's very few famous black people I can see, giving you the opportunity. Denzel has, Will Smith has, there's a couple other ones that Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan, they came up together and helped each other get opportunity. I've seen them help. I don't really see a lot of other them helping each other unless they, buddies and yeah, I don't
Right,
know.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, but that's why overall it's really just 50-50 between, Dave Chappelle and Katt Williams. Like I said, there's certain aspects that I understand and I agree with. And then with Dave Chappelle, there's other things that I understand and I agree with, but I think the both sides, it's just gonna take some work. You know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
I mean, Katt, at the end of the day, it's like I said before, it's like, well, where to from here? I'm pretty sure he's probably gonna still do shows, do his thing. He's not gonna be as huge as he was before, but I think he's come to terms with that reality. And I think he's fine with just, telling his truth. But I think really that's as good as it gets. A 3-hour interview with Shannon Sharpe that does tens of millions of views. You get what I'm saying? And I don't, and honestly, personally, I don't really think that things are ever gonna like get repaired as far as Katt, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and probably some of the other comedy OGs that he called out, because at the end of the day, like, he said what he said, and then whether it's true or not, it is what it is. But I don't see them, squashing it with him. But I honestly, really, it's always going to be discord amongst Black public figures at the end of the day. I think I've really come to that, realization, a while ago. And especially like in this conversation, I just don't really see that united front that I was talking about. That's an ideal. I don't think it'll ever be a reality.
No, you're right, and I think it ultimately comes down to, and this is why I don't, I'm not talking ill will, because I met Cedric the Entertainer, Anthony Anderson before, years ago, and they were nice people, and I think, well, at least based off that encounter, I don't know what they are, in real
Right.
life, personal life, but I'll say this: I'll understand why things happen the way they do. There's very limited opportunity for us, even in this whole inclusion era. How many Black people you think is going to rise to the top, and how many opportunities do you think there are for us, to live comfortably doing what we love? Yeah, you could be in a movie. That don't mean you're gonna be, that's gonna be your day job now, And
Right.
I think when we start talking about that, it becomes a battle of who's going to get that spot. And
Yeah, and then they
unfortunately,
keep things in house. That's
exactly,
that's that's where you have the like the exclusive click, because they know that it's a finite amount of opportunity, and they're like, oh well, why don't we just keep it all within like a closed circuit? And then whomever we do allow into the circuit, we're gonna make sure that they're really down with the program by having them do a whole bunch of crazy shit that nobody really knows about. Because you hear
exactly.
you hear like Katt Williams divulge, but he doesn't really divulge. Same thing with Gary Owen. From what you said or from what you quoted, it's like a very vague statement about whatever it is that he encountered in that room that he said that he was in that was going to determine the trajectory of his career. You know?
Yep. And those are the, people who say those rooms and stuff aren't true. Trust me, they're alive and well. And like you said, I hope one day they get rid of them, because the casting couch got to go, and it's time for people to make a living off their talent and not willing to what they're willing to say yes to. But that's
Right.
why Katt Williams interviewed did so well, because he shed a light on something that we people been wanting to hear about, and he finally gave it to them.
Right, right. Yep. But anyway, on that note, what are your thoughts? Please be sure as always to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.